Pew 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 pew. Here we are. It is incredible that here we are. And wait, that's a forward. Here. There it is. I think everything should be in place. Let me, as always, try to run an audio test just in case. I don't think it is that bad or that there should be any problem, but just in case. Let me see. Wait, there is some weird noise, I think, but well, we don't really care about that, particularly today, because we're simply going to do some stuff, going to, let's say, analyze, or well, not analyze really, more like, yeah, simply go back to Hero, go back to, let me set it up properly, go back to Krita, and go back to trying and seeing if we can improve a little bit more, because I haven't been really paying that much attention to it. This, I think, almost this past week or so. Well, yeah, get me here. Transition arthritis. The objective itself wasn't to ignore all of this, but in reality, it was more like I needed to try and create something from here because it shouldn't have been a problem. Let's say it shouldn't have been something that is like here or like now. Problematic thing, let's say. So yeah, we are one scientist shit books. We are testing stuff basically, and we are seeing how it goes and similar. I mean, I don't really think anything like this could go wrong, but also the main point is to try and learn how to draw and such, you know, because I have been trying not my best. I will not say my best. I think it is a lie if I were to say that. But I have been trying to properly utilize something like this. So, um, basically, yeah, soup. But no, basically, it is once again time to test and time to keep progressing towards creating something that can be easily understood, I will say. Um, Last time we talked about, if I'm not wrong, it was about the idea of how to communicate ideas by themselves. Something I don't really remember. I can't almost I yeah mm, almost every single time that I end the stream I don't remember what was it that we were talking about. So without further ado, let me see what could we try to talk about today. I think we have a lot of things to talk about, and we have, for example, okay, mm, let's say like this. Wait, mm, there it is. The idea itself is something along the lines of. Uh, I would say, yeah, topic probably. Uh, the character is this one. There it is, something like this basically. The idea itself is wait, we're probably never going to cover every single topic nor idea that we have. And I do not think, yeah, let's say like this. Mm, There it is. The idea itself is we will never have enough time to talk about every single thing that might seem interesting. But I do not observe that as a specifically a problem that really should concern us, let's say. Because I think part of trying to also create something is the notion and even more the acceptance of knowing that we are going to fail probably. Or I don't even think it is like a failure, it's simply part of the process itself. To not have the chance to talk about every single thing that one might find, not because by itself we can't try to talk about every single thing, but rather because by themselves the different things that we have an interest in talking about are so most of the time, um, let's say like this. There it is. Let's say like that. I I will probably try to argue that every single thing has so much more complexity than what we could ever expect that it ends up being because of that specific reason kind of bothersome. I do not really, yeah, I do not really think that because things are complex, we, yeah, going back to the same idea that is over here. Let me here. Going back to this, it doesn't really represent a problem. At least I think it could be seen as not something problematic. Let's say, why? Because when every single concept has the possibility of being expanded upon and even more being so much explored or so yeah to such a depth explored that almost all the things that are related to the act of in this particular case I think learning anything or trying to make sense out of any particular concept, when that happens it ends up being something that feels, I wouldn't say completely simply good, but rather yes, something that feels nice. Because let's say like this. Um, uh, well, I think it is related to both of these in a sense. Yeah. Mm, no, wait, like this. Holy fuck. Infinitely. Oh my god. I got to sneeze. Sorry. There it is. Basically something like this. The ideas themselves be okay. Sorry. Going back to this, everything is too complex, and we will never have the chance of talking about every single idea. But both of those things combined end up giving us the result that all the ideas, I think, can be infinitely expanded upon. Not because they have the property of being infinite, but rather because after a certain point, all the things are so interrelated between themselves that it ends up happening, let's say, that when we learn and when we even more try to properly put in our brains information related to something interesting like this, mm, or well, I mean, obviously, that is also something that I wanted to add. Okay, okay, I think I can add it over here. Holy fuck. I seem to be struggling with the A's. So yeah, basically that. I will phrase it like this probably because or well, let me let me try to put it in a better way. What? Hello, Spike. Give me a second. Let me do this properly. Hello, Spike. Thank you for the ride. Welcome. Um, I hope you have a great stream. I hope you enjoyed. Um, you were playing Pokemon Fusion still, no? So I hope you enjoyed your Pokemon. And well, basically, today we're simply um, here. We're here practicing once again my writing stuff and similar. So yeah, we're talking about right now the idea of probably not even having enough time to go over stuff. So yeah, um, no, yeah, no problem by asking. But well, I mean, also obviously, everybody, welcome. I hope you can enjoy whatever it is that is happening here. We're particularly now um, discussing or analyzing the idea itself of never having enough time to go over every single thing that might seem interesting. So yeah, we're basically doing that right now. Um, I was over here right now on this part of why will it be a problem when we can focus on, yeah, this is an M, on what is interesting. let's say every single time. Let's say, wait, there was no audio playing. There was even a notification, or did Streamlabs not work? Uh, I guess Streamlabs didn't work, probably. Mhm. Let me see. I love your philosophy study, thank you. But technically, if we have an infinite amount of time and an infinite amount of people, could we discuss infinite amount of topics? Yeah, I mean, also something that I was trying to talk here is almost every single thing, at least on the surface, seems to be or seems to have the attribute of being infinite to a certain extent because they can be infinitely expanded upon. So I think if we are talking about trying to cover every single concept, this has to deal more with. Let me add it over here. Um, Here, infinite on one side, the infinite, let's say, topics. The amount of topics is infinite, yes, but at the same time, the amount itself of infinite things that exist inside of the topics might as well be even bigger than the amount of, let's say, like this, infinite people. Because in regards to the question itself, if we are talking about the idea of trying to cover every single topic, mm, not only there is a necessity of considering the fact that because we're humans, and even if we had infinite time, because we lack the capacity of completely covering anything, the instant we want to talk about them and even more, um, let's say like this, the infinite yeah, one infinite, or well, I mean, let's say like this also. Even if combining the amount of time and the amount of people, the amount of things that could be considered through the whole, I think, variety of knowledge that might exist or that might be possibly expanded upon in almost every reality, probably ends up being so huge that it will require, let's say, multiple amounts of infinite people and infinite times to try and cover every single thing inside an infinite amount of topics. But I think even if it is true that one type of infinite is bigger than the other, it doesn't mean that we cannot try to cover them. And probably, I do not know, going back to this, I do not know if every single topic really is completely infinite or not, because I will guess after an infinite amount of time, mm, we might end up finding the reality of okay, everything is so interrelated that after a certain point, let's say, you end up going back to the place in which you started because it isn't that you do not have anything more to expand, but simply the act itself of trying to know even more about anything in an infinite plane ends up also taking into consideration the idea itself of the proper understanding of even the idea itself that brought this desire in you, let's say. Mm, but I think, yeah, even obviously, going back to this, I do not see it as a real problem or as a real negative thing, let's say, because the possibility of learning and even more the possibility of acquiring knowledge from the things that we really find interesting is so incredibly big that by the simple act of focusing on those things that are interesting, in our life, the act itself of being entertained by the simple act of learning is there. The problem I will propose in this case will be a real problem. Um, Let me take it over here. Um, um, want you to learn to explore. Yeah, let's say to explore. Um, okay, let's say like this. Um, for what will it be? For proper. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously that's why quote unquote proper, because one of the biggest notions will also be that maybe there isn't a real proper way, as it is something that needs to be constantly changing. You cannot say that something is proper because the property itself of being the correct one gets lost the instant it the society itself notices that this tool could be expanded upon or this way could be made even better, let's say. But at the very least, the idea itself is to try and give the people the notion of maybe this is something interesting, and maybe going back to this, if you do not show them that it can be interesting and that they can also simply focus on what is interesting every single time, if you do not give them the possibility of learning about it by the proper means, you will only, for example, okay, one good example I think is on school we are taught about different tools that if we were to notice that they had an intention behind them that was to properly guide and to properly orient anybody towards having the most basic tools towards surviving in life in an older era, we could probably understand why we would need them on one hand, but on the other, if, like it happens here, if we never showed that it was necessary to have this kind of knowledge, nor that it was important also to try and properly, let's say, explore, or not simply explore, to properly absorb every single part of the knowledge, nobody will really feel a necessity for doing it, as it ends up simply going back into the feeling of being a burden, and it even more ends up going back into the idea of being I will say, yeah, a very big, not simply problem, but rather an struggle for something that could always be enjoyable, let's say. Um, let's say, and I think in this case, the difference between this proper and this new proper is that um, there it is. I do not know. The only thing I wouldn't know is if it is societal or more like individual knowledge. But um, let's simply say knowledge, just in case. Mm, there it is. But yeah, I mean, also, as I wanted to say here, the difference between this proper and this other proper is that while one is a concept that always keeps being expanded upon, the idea itself of simply gaining more knowledge for the sake of having more tools and having more tools for the sake of having an easier life or striving towards an even bigger goal in a whole mm, human architecture is more important than to simply exist, let's say, or to simply try to find in which ways we can do it. Because I wouldn't be so much preoccupied as to in which ways we might be necessarily trying to learn more in this particular concept, because this is simply talking about the idea of, you know, we can try to explore everything. What is important and what is not is what really matters on other hand. But the main idea is also to try and, because here, why will it be a problem? And the response is the problem itself exists when nobody gets taught that they can learn almost anything and enjoy their time learning about it. That is the proper response, I will say. Yeah, basically this. And because we lack the proper capacities of teaching people that it is necessary to expand upon that, we also lack the proper interest, or yeah, I would say not only the interest, but also the notion and even fear of knowing what it means to not keep building towards any particular goal. In this case, obviously, the biggest goal, as I said before, is to keep constructing stronger concepts and constructing even bigger things for the sake of exploring an even deeper reality, if we are talking about it. But I do not really think it is that negative. Still, the only question itself is how to properly motivate somebody to keep having an interest, or every single say, okay, let's say like this, every single day, some, yeah, how to teach somebody that they need to every single day ignite their flames, or their fire of passion for the sake of learning. Because if we never give them a reason as to why it is necessary to do so, we will never be able to really explain to anybody that it is a vital part of the human existence itself. Because one of the few examples that I can remember is, let's say like this. We have the guy who's working and all of that stuff, who is always carrying his what is it? His luggage? No, his thing that he works with, you know. And he's always happy. On the on today's society, let's say, he's also always happy because he's working and he is very very happy basically, because he also has, let's say, his what is it? His job and all of his obligations fulfilled, you know. So he goes to work every single day, but it also is only. But yeah, he always goes to work and he's happy working and he knows that he's doing something. But one of the biggest failures that I have slowly started to realize exist on today's society is when this guy, let's say, this guy is from, I will even say from 20 to almost 60 years old. Mm, And what they were taught, for example, in the case of somebody who only understands that it is necessary to have a work, is that they need to play a role more than anything else. I will even say for the sake of surviving, and for the sake of being alive. But this has also a finite amount of time, and this means that they are going after reaching 60 years old, or obviously, if they do not fulfill every single part of the requirements for retirement, they are not going to retire exactly at 60 years or exactly when they are 60, but the main objective is to be 60 and to be retired. So, if what you teach the society itself is that they need to work 40, 30, 35 years, then what they can do or what they could enjoy the most is to simply retire and to simply live their whole life, let's say. 30s. This is amazing. This is a real drawing. 30s. Basically, the idea of when you get so old, you can retire and you can live your leisure life, not worrying about society and not playing a role in society anymore, because you already fulfill your place. Not in the sense of you need to keep working, but rather in the sense of okay, you fulfilled your existence. You have nothing more to do with them with the rest of your life almost. So I would say 60 plus. Mm, Because yeah, I think that is a good way to say it. If we do not teach people that it is necessary for I do not think for the soul itself, but rather for for the interest of forming and existing in a real society to keep, or let's say, yeah, um, this. If you teach them that they have the chance of retiring and never again forming part of the world, the part of the human mind that deals with the ideas themselves and even more delves, let's say, into the different concepts that have to deal with, I might have an interest and I might want to keep living and I might want to keep giving something back to the society. If you never teach them that it is a possibility, no matter how old you are, no matter how young you are, also, because in a sense, almost this also might apply here. It doesn't really mean that you never need to work, but rather that what you work on might become a bigger work, or not a bigger work, rather a bigger concept than you, for the sake of showing everybody, or not, well, sorry, not simply showing, rather of giving anybody the chance of exploring with you those ideas that are interesting. And going back to this, things do not need to be boring. You only need to find those parts of life that are interesting. The proper ways in which you are going to do it, even more has to deal with the proper understanding and even more with the proper adaptation yourself, with your proper adaptation to the different climates in which you might or not explore things. But you will find your way, and you will sometimes, obviously, I think it gets overlooked that, let's say, like this. There it is. Everything of this side of reality, let's say, is hard, but because it is hard and because, in a sense, it almost also represents a burden, you can find it interesting and you can find it, going back to this, you can find all the time things that end up being interesting because you know that you're not going to have such an easy time. It goes back to what I tried to say here, for example. If we only had to think about people, or an infinite amount of people dealing with an infinite amount of topics, we might not even worry ourselves about the idea itself of, we might or not explore every single topic, because you know that every single idea has an end. But if you also add to the equation the reality that there is an infinite amount of time, we also notice that the topics themselves also become even deeper and also acquire the, I will say, the attribute of being even more complex than what at first might look. And I do not think it is something negative or something bad. I rather only see it as a consequence of trying to go for any particular idea similar to this one, let's say, because even the most basic of the shops has the property of being something that needs to be constantly, um, yeah, constantly checked and constantly upgraded almost. But yeah, I will say, also going back to this, if we do not teach the people that they do not need to retire from society, and they shouldn't, I don't think it isn't that they shouldn't strive for having a break on their lives, but rather that they shouldn't look for mm, almost not forming part anymore of the society themselves. If we do not teach people that we are, in one way, I do not think completely failing, but rather it has to deal with this. We are lacking one of the proper ways in which we can keep having a better, mm, or well, not simply one, overall better societies, because the idea itself of giving hope to somebody that they can, no matter who they are, no matter where they are, no matter how much time they spend, understand and even more expand on different ideas by themselves, or with the help of others. If we do not teach people that, we end up going back into, didn't I say it? What the fuck? What is it? I never said it. This is amazing. Let me. Ah, wait. Okay. There it is, more properly put. The consequence of not giving the societies themselves, the individuals, and the different groups the necessity of having an interest in the act itself, of trying to cover every single thing, no matter, or even if we know that we will never have the chance of doing it completely, if we do not give them the possibility of doing it, we end up with this, with an stagnation and an stagnating society. Because after a certain point, the idea itself, or the almost, I do not know if it is a real dream or not, the objective of having this life, because in this life you do not even have to worry about working nor being in a sense part of the society nor nothing like that anymore, becomes so big, and the interest for leaving this behind becomes so incredibly overwhelming that the society itself ends up thinking it is necessary to not have any more work, instead of understanding the necessity of the different works that exist, no matter which society it is. Probably kind of obvious to add that through learning also it comes the consequence, and I wouldn't really add it anywhere. Simply a side note. Obviously, some works can be mm, extracted from the equation, because with time it also becomes a reality that we learn about tools that simplify already existing works. And sometimes these tools are so incredibly helpful for these shops that it even happens that the shops themselves disappear completely. So yeah, I do not think it is that negative compared to not having any more interest in shows. The simple interest in fulfilling or in expanding even more in what we already have should be bigger than this desire for retirement or something like that. That at the end of the day doesn't really achieve anything. Mm, and kind of the opposite, because what I wanted to say with this is also, if you end up believing that it is necessary for you to not form part anymore of the society after a certain point, as it the problem is you see it with older people. The old people and the elders end up feeling almost excluded from society, because in a sense we end up doing it, and we end up not giving them the chance of being part of us anymore, because we say, yeah, you already did your job, you are already retired, you can't even work anymore, so yeah, go fuck off, old man, and stuff like that. And basically that it isn't the biggest problem itself, but it is simply another thing that adds to the consequence, or the final consequence, that is the stagnation of any society, I will say. Well, let me add this just in case. And well, I don't even know how much I have on that. So let me please check that. How much I have on that? Wait a second, because I want to check that. Okay, I might as well keep expanding on this instead of moving on into anything else, because yeah, mm, we don't have that much time to really change into anything else. I might have spent too much rambling on this in particular. So yeah, I mean, the other thing also obviously was like, um, what I barely passed by the idea itself of, when we are kids. What the fuck? No, not so tiny. Holy God. mental damage. There it is. If when and even more because it happens, I think when you when anybody goes into middle schools and similar, you learn to have an interest, and I wouldn't properly say it is completely installed on everybody, but they do a better work at teaching. Let's say how young they are. I think they are from nowadays. It is almost from 4 year olds to eight almost. I think when they are this age, we can sometimes, or well, depending on the teachers themselves, also the students learn that it is important to have an interest in learning. But when time passes, and even more when they get older, the system itself ends up being so rigid about the necessity of acquiring what I told before, the on an older era necessary skills for survival, mm, but something that nowadays doesn't really represent such an important role. Mm, this is incredible. He kept he kept the shit in his head. What the fuck? I didn't mean to do that. He's mildly happy, let's say, nowadays. Mm, there it is. When the kids stop being so little, and when the what is it? Pre-adolescents, I think it is. When the pre-adolescents end up being forced to learn so much for the sake of simply having good grades and even more acquiring those things that might not, yeah, after a certain point, they don't even play a role in the rest of their existence. Because nowadays we don't even have teaching systems in which we properly give them the chance of going for the things that they are really interested in. We only force them to learn things that are artifacts of an older era, almost, as I said before. They don't really need nor have a real inspiration for doing it, you know. They simply have the necessity of doing it because, for example, one of the very big things that happens most of the time is also the notion that if you do not do good enough on a school, for example, you are going to become a failure, or you are going to lose everything that you have, and you are going to also not have the chance of being a really worthy man of existing, or a really worthy human of being alive. And because of that, and because of this, and blah 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 blah, you end up being almost constantly punished for this ideology itself of you need to learn. And if you're not learning, you're failing almost society, the entirety of society, let's say. Instead of really giving everybody a chance of going back to this, knowing that first and foremost it is going to be hard, but by accepting that it is going to be hard, you also know that you will have the chance of exploring only the things that are interesting to you, let's say. um, because yeah, in this case I will even say like this is the only one that really fits back onto itself, because when you know that things are going to be hard, you know that they are, to a certain degree, be more interesting to you. And here the idea is when you are from this age range, you start to lose so much interest, as for example this kid has here, because let's say the representation itself tries to be the kid is happy, the kid is even with his mouth open because he's really feeling good about what he's doing. Nowadays, he doesn't even have the mouth open. And what ends up happening on the latest or the oldest part after you finally get released into the wilderness of colleges and universities and all of that is you are once again, let's say, or not once again, you're even more punished by this same idea of you're not giving anything to society and you're not being a really good tool for this world. And when the kids, or at that point, the adolescents are taught that they are really not important and that they might as well be failing the whole world by not having an interest in learning, the sadness itself is what happens. And even sometimes I would say this, they don't even grab anymore their pencil and they don't even have an interest in anything like that because they almost feel like they have been failing so much through those past years because also this is very 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 superficial. It has to deal, for example, when you're a kid you're shown almost constantly approval from your elders. When you're or well, let's say when you're a very young kid, when you're a kid, that amount of approval doesn't really get shown to you anymore. And when you are at this age, almost an adolescent, you almost don't get any approval. So you need to either come up with it from other people, from your equals, or find yourself striving for the sake of surviving in a world in which nobody is really paying attention to what you do. And not because you need to be paid attention, but rather because by itself, the act of learning is also something that needs to be, I will say, praised. Because knowing that anything we do has the possibility of failing and still doing so is what matters the most. Not simply saying, yeah, you might as well try to delve into this particular thing or not. It is more like, okay, you failed. What did you learn from this? It is incredible that you spend so much time doing something just to fail. What can you do again? Or what can you do the next time to not fail like how you did it now? That is also something that, for example, gets lost in the middle of this because this has to deal with another concept, and that is if we punish so much someone because they failed, instead of really saying to them, it is amazing that you tried, and it is very good that you learned something from it. What can you tell me about your experience and how is it that you're going to avoid failing once again? If you give them that possibility, instead of punishing them in the way in which you make them feel bad simply for their failures and not want anymore to fail, you never give possibility also to the learning process, to the complete learning process. Because no matter what discipline you're in, a part itself is to fail. And a part itself is not simply to fail, but to extract knowledge from your failures. And obviously, it doesn't only come from the side of failing, it also comes from the side of doing quote unquote good and absorbing knowledge from there too. But it is more complex than that. So yeah, basically this. We are very happy with this. Amazing, let's say. Not not that much more to really explore nowadays, I think. So yeah, I mean, probably if I were to try and say anything in particular about this is we have the possibility at the very least of influencing those who are around us. So if we give those who are closest to us a hope for exploring new things and new realms of knowledge, we start to create and we start to, let's say, influence societies themselves, because the change is born from the minimal amount of effort, not from the top down, but rather from the bottom up in this case. So yeah, I think it is better to not get overwhelmed by the reality of wow, our whole educational system is failing, but rather do we, those kids who are around us or those elders who are around us, the possibility of knowing, okay, you need or you have the possibility of still being part of the system, and it is something that can be enjoyed. So I wouldn't see it as something bad. So yeah, I think that is everything so far for this one particular diagram, or I don't know what is the real name. So yeah, that's everything for today, I would say. I mean, I am very happy with it. I don't really feel like it is bad or anything like that. I will say, probably, obviously, also, in a more personal level, it is very important, even more, to try and absorb knowledge for the sake of ourselves, not for the sake of fulfilling, as it is said here, fulfilling any particular role, but rather for the act itself of feeling good with what we are learning, and even more acquiring knowledge that ends up being significant to us, not to. It isn't that it doesn't need to be important to others, but it is more like because it is important to us, it will become important to others. Let's say. And so yeah, I think that's all I can say today. That is the conclusion, and now we are going to raise somebody because I am very happy with this, but I also have to eat something. I also have to have to take a break. So yeah, I mean we did very great. I think I I wouldn't be preoccupied with any kind of negative thing so far. Okay, people. I think with that we're done, and with that we also deserve to raise somebody. In this case, we're going to live with right to Tiny Vermin, who is playing um, Project Zomboid. But yeah, people, as always, thanks for being here, thanks for paying attention, thanks for lurking, thanks for watching the VOD, thanks for every single thing. It is once again my biggest pleasure to try and go over ideas, to try and go over stuff here. Note that yeah, we have still a long way to go, so do not worry that it is finishing right now. Be happy that it will keep happening in the future. And also know that it doesn't really represent a problem. It doesn't really feel like a burden to not have the chance of doing this every single time. It is only simply part of the process to know that we have to live, we have to take a break, we have to enjoy or rest, and yeah, whenever it happens again, it happens. Now, as I said before, riding Tiny Vermin, we're going to entertain ourselves a little bit with some Project Zomboid gameplay. So yeah, thanks for everything, people. And know that also, thank you, Spike, for the raid. Thank you. Um, and yes, wait, no. There it is. Now for real. Um, thanks for everything, people. Goodbye. Take rest. Take care. Uh, Stay hydrated. Stay properly rested also. And well, whenever it happens, it happens. The next occasion. Now we're leaving. We are raiding. And yeah, nothing else to really add. Thanks for everything, people. Thanks. So now, yeah, raid.